Welcome back to the Designing AI-Driven Personalized Learning Environments course. In this section, we will talk about history of personalized adaptive learning environments. So before we begin, let's talk about learning theories. We have some of them we covered, but let's revisit it quickly. The basic, the learning theory which started in 1920s or 1900s is behaviorism. The behaviorism talks about rewards and punishment. That is, I can teach someone by giving a reward. Suppose if a student completes a given task, I'll give him chocolate. If a student is not able to complete the particular task, we'll give them punishment. For example, write it 10 times or do the assignment or something like that. The rewards and punishment mechanism is based on the behaviorist theory that students can improve the positive reinforced actions. That is, the whatever we are giving reward, they will develop that particular activity. That would lead to the good learning materials. For example, there's a stimulus is needed. This goes back to the psychologist theory on how the stimulus reacts to the learning, and the stimulus can be the rewarding mechanism, the bonus marks. The stimulus can be something related to the chocolate. Stimulus can be the gamified mechanism like a leaderboard or the stars or agents or something like that. So the idea of this behaviorism is that knowledge is transferred into students' memory. They thought the knowledge is kind of exist outside. By maintaining a reward and punishment, the knowledge can be transferred to the student's memory. So this idea is kind of debated. Later came up a new learning theory called cognitivism. Here they talked about cognition, that is how the brain works. If you know how the brain works, can we use that knowledge to teach better? So the idea is that learners acquire knowledge based on the sensory elements like face, like eyes, sense elements like smell, taste, and by looking at object, they create a schema. Then they develop the knowledge, and they process the knowledge, build it, and on existing knowledge. And this like a database, they can add it, delete it, and they can extract whenever they need it. Deletion of knowledge is not easy. It has to be that you have to not think about the particular topic for a long time, then it has to go. So the problem is all about how the knowledge is processed from the short term memory to long term, which has been studied along in the cognitism theories, and this is also a kind of a teacher centric method. So the behaviorism and cognitivism is kind of teacher centric method where the content to the learner is provided with the proper reward, and the content is driven by the teacher, and the teacher thinks the knowledge exists outside, and knowledge can be transferred to the learner's brain, or learners can acquire knowledge by doing set of activities. Then come to the constructivism. Even it's not then, it's like it's happening parallelly, but it's not like the third theory in this. The constructivism talks about knowledge is building upon your previous knowledge, like you are constructing your existing knowledge and you're adding to it, and it is constructing. It is not instead of transferring the knowledge from the simply reading from the book, you are actively involved in the particular activity by interacting with the system, by interacting with this particular topic. You are building your own knowledge. This knowledge is constructed by active participation. The teacher's role is only to the mentor or facilitator of the particular learning objective. Here the student driven method is coming into picture. So according to learning theories, the basic idea is that most of the classes in 20th century is a teacher driven methods where teacher talks about a topic, the topic has been transferred to knowledge, or students reads particular content, passively reading and understanding it, rote learning is happening. Whereas the constructive approach says that instead of passive rote learning, let the learners to interact with the learning content and construct their own knowledge. These are the basic learning theories. I talked about these learning theories because we would like to look at the history of personalized adaptive learning environments, where how this the theories also played role in shaping history of the pals. So just before we start, we just give a definition of what is personalized learning environments. It adapts the learning content and or the feedback provided to the learner based on their performance and preferences. I think this is very clear in the sense the particular system has to adapt in the sense provides a nest content, the content to read, or the system to provide a nest feedback based on the learner's performance. If the learner is able to do well in the exam, given test, he got like 80 out of 100 marks, we give it to the next topic. That's a very typical idea. But what is preferences? What are the learner's preferences? How can you measure it? I would like you to pause now. The symbol, the pause button, whenever it appears is kind of some activity to you. I'd like you to pause now and think what are the preferences we need to consider to adapt the learning content. We can adapt the content based on performance, based on their the marks score or the assignment scores or the submission time, but what is the preferences? So I want you to think about it, pass it for a minute and think. The personalized adaptive learning started well before it started long back. Actually, in 1980s, Benjamin Bloom's has conducted a study where one-on-one tutoring compared to the traditional teaching classroom. What Benjamin Bloom did that in the classroom, students studied a particular concepts, and he did a one-on-one tutoring for the other set of experimental group, and he has shown that the improvement in the learning gain is 2 sigma, which is like if you think about the Gaussian curve, the significant learning gain has improved. So this 2 sigma problem, as established in 1980s by Benjamin Bloom, leads to a big revolution in the need for developing personalized adaptive learning environment has started. So then coming to the latest technology after 90s and 2000, we cannot have the individual teacher to teach all the learners. So can we use the technology, okay, to scale this PAL so that the humans, all the students can get benefited. So the idea is that the PAL works has been established in 1980s. From that time, we have a lot of research has been done how to scale the benefits of this human tutor, one-on tutor, using the technology, that is a computer-based learning environments. So we will see this evolution from a mechanical boxes to generative AI across 5 distinct areas from 1920 to 2020, that is across 100 years. And we'll talk about it each phase, where the learning theory is generated, then later how the computer was introduced and how Gen AI is used. So in 1920s to 1950s, in the initial time, they talked about behaviorism and continuous reinforcement, because we just talked about behaviorism in the very first of the slide, right? As we discussed, behaviorism as the beginning of the slide has been the theory in 1920s. They thought, can we use behaviorism principles in the mechanical machine to provide personalized learning systems? So in 1920s, there comes a teaching machine. It's a mechanical device for multiple choice questions, and if the student answers correctly, the reward is given. That is, the answer is correct, the next question is given or the reward is given. If it is wrong, the student is given punishment, do the question again or do question multiple times. In 1950s, the Skinner's programmed instruction. That's the first kind of intelligent tutoring system well known to the world, where Skinner is to take the box. This is a teaching machine, intelligent teaching machine, to the classrooms, and they used to set a set of questions to the learners. If the learner does it well and learner passes the exam, then the advanced topic is given to the learner. That's the reward. Reward is giving advanced topic. Wherever if the learner is not able to do, then they have to redo it again, some kind of mechanism. But the problem here is that the topic has been broken down to smaller concepts, and they try to give you the one step first, like first basic concepts. Once you are done, go to second concept, something like that. Students who are not able to complete the very beginning, the very first concepts, they were not allowed to go further. So that is a kind of a punishment. The limitation in this particular mechanism is that we don't know why the student is not solved the problem. We know that student has completed with the good marks or not. So we know student has passed the exam or not. So only the performance is coming into picture. But that's not good. We need to know why the student is not able to solve. Can we help them? That is the idea started. In 1960s to 1970s, I think that's the kind of very early system where the computers also being introduced. And so they're talking about computers can be used to teach, and early AI is coming into picture. The AI in the sense of the first gen AI, the first phases in the AI. There's a system called Plato, it's in University of Illinois, and there's a museum still exists there. It is a first computer assisted instruction systems. This is the first computer system. So we call it CIS system, where there's a online testing has been done. The students are sitting into a computer kind of a lab. The current lab kind of concept came. They are able to access the computer there, start interacting. This is the first computer, computer supported, computer adapted language learning system exists in the 1960. Then came 1970, the Scholar system in Stanford. They use semantic networks and domain knowledge to provide the generate the MCQ questions. The domain knowledge can be, in this particular scenario, the area South American geography, but the domain knowledge can be a particular the Indian geography, where the question can be automatically generated. What would be the capital of X, the state? They can have 4 options. The X systematically can be changing from Bihar to Uttar Pradesh to Tamil Nadu to Maharashtra. It can change. The options can be automatically generated based on the one equal and other random cities. So that's the idea. Semantic network can be created used to provide the intelligent automated generation of questions. This is one of the earlier work using natural language processing to provide like advanced that time intelligent learning environments. Then come 1980s and 2000. Here the people moved away from behaviorism to a cognitivism. Here they try to understand the learners how brain works, like how the content is read into going into short-term memory to the long-term memory. They try to create more of cognition models of the learners. Whenever we talk about the brain model or the information processing systems, right, we are trying to talk about the learners is able to collect data using multiple sensors. Then they store them in the short-term memory. By set of activities like redoing or some activities, they move the activity to the long-term memory. This is the concept which is created. So based on these cognition concept, in 1980s in Carnegie Mellon, I think Anderson's system tutor called Adaptive Control Thought Rational Theory of Human Memory, where they try to trace the learner's learning by step, then they try to provide a feedback. What we will talk about this cognitive tutor in detail in week 2 or 3. The idea is take the particular problem and try to break down into a sub concepts chunks. Then that chunks we solve it. When the student gives input for each chunk and students fails to provide a feedback, then we provide some particular hint and solve the problems. So they try to trace the learner's interactions, how their learner learn. Then they try to understand the learner's mastery skill using Bayesian knowledge tracing method. Even this is from Carnegie Mellon University. Then they try to include that there's a chance learner can give an answer correctly by guessing, or the learners knows the concept, still they miss the right option by slips. So they consider these kind of behaviors of the learners and they try to provide the hint. And using that knowledge, they are able to understand learners' mastery skills. How many hints the students used, how much time the student took, everything is considered to provide the learner's mastery. This become the basics for the learner modeling or about modeling the learners in the personalized adaptive learning environment. This is a Bayesian knowledge tracing. We will talk about this in detail later. But that become the standard in the intelligent learning environments or the PAL till now. Then comes the era of 2000s to 2020s. The core idea is that a lot of data has been collected from the learners because Web 2.0 started coming in 2006 or 5. So the users can give the input to the system. So we collect a lot of input from the learners in via the options they select, the interactions, they type data. That data can be used using massive machine learning algorithms can provide a feedback. The idea is that we can personalize at the massive scale for the MOOCs kind of systems. There are systems like assessment. Assessment is like assist is kind of assist the person, assist is kind of supporting, and ment is from the assessment, assessing the learner. Assess the learner and use the data to provide the assistant. That is the assessment system. Alex, all those systems has been created in those eras. And this has moved a shift from individual personalized learning to talking about learning in the large scale of millions of users using MOOCs. So the learning algorithms trained on large data sets just to understand learners' performance, what will be the learner's next actions, if the learner passed the particular course, which course can be recommended to learner so that based on the previous skill, learner can do well. Another thing is a lot of machine learning algorithm has been applied on the system, like a sequential pattern mining, clustering, all those algorithms has been developed in this era to support this personalized adaptive learning environment. So that comes to the next era, generative AI and multimodal learning analytics. It's just a recent one. The thing is now we moved beyond the normal personalized adaptive learning environment to conversational AIs, and the LLMs are kind of acts as a pedagogical agents. We'll talk about that. And it's moved beyond giving the rule-based support. Instead, the support comes from multimodal input and multiple level of feedback can be provided. So for example, we have developed systems like affect-aware systems where we detect the students' facial expression. Using facial expression, we detect the students' frustration, boredom, or engagement, and we use that data to provide the content and the agents, the avatars, emotional, facial expressions based on learners' affective states, that is boredom, confusion, frustration, and the performance in the systems. So the system is kind of considering both input now. Now you could think about the very beginning we started, what are the preferences we need in the learning environment other than performance. The one can be here is preferences can be based on the learner's affective states also. Can you pause for a moment and think what are the preferences would be needed? I hope you wrote some of the preferences needed for the system. We are not sure what are the preferences because it can be performance based, it can be emotional based, it can be based on your interaction strategy, the amount of time you are spending. All those things will come into picture. We'll talk about that all in detail. And there's no way we could cover all the preferences in one particular lecture. So to summarize, 1950s Skinner's teaching machine has come up, the mechanical models. It's based on stimulus response pattern. They rewarded students correct response, and the students not fail, they have to do it again, so they're not advanced to the next topic. In the 1960s, 50s, 60s, the computer assisted learning is coming. Computer assisted instruction, CAI, has come, and there's not much evidence, but now it is been introduced. In 1970s, there's a cognitive psychology and computer science to adapt the instruction, where we saw cognitive tutor and cognition become the major player in providing personalized adaptive learning environment. In 2000, most of the learning environment moved to the computer-based learning environment. The computers are easily available. Web 2.0 is all the web-based systems. Multimodal learning environment has become. Student can learn using text, video, simulations, GIFs, graphics. Everything is introduced in 2000s. In 2020, the personalization is the key topic for AI in education. That is the reason we wanted to give this course now, because a lot of people talk about what are the major advantage of Gen AI in education. The first thing comes out is the personalization. But most people not understanding what is personalization, what level of personalization is needed. So we thought let's create a course and talk about personalization based on our experience from our past 15 years. Thank you for listening to this lecture. We will continue about personalized adaptive learning in the next lectures.